Cuba is well known for its healthcare system, but also for the scientific results of places like this one, the Molecular Immunology Center, which develops new products to diagnose and treat cancer. But now it's more than that, because it's also a profitable enterprise. In this state-of-the-art laboratory, we met Dr. Agustin Laje, the director of this center. He's one of the most renowned scientists in Cuba, and he talks about the most complex science with simplicity. Doctor, what are they doing here?
Well, this is a quality control lab. You know, we are on top of the manufacturing facility, which is downstairs. You saw the fermenters. But every batch or every component should be tested. So what is going on in this laboratory is the use of a sophisticated molecular technology to characterize the product and to certify the purity, the identity, to test for possible contaminants. So to control, that's the
for the exportation.
For control for use in Cuba, you know. And there is a principle in that, is that in medicines there are only one quality. So this that happen in other industry, that you have a quality for national use and another for export. No, it's for other industry. In pharmaceutical industry, quality is only one.
This kind of equipment is very expensive, right? For have this kind of high technology lab, it's expensive, right?
In fact, it is. But you know, the most difficult, let's say, asset that you need is people able to use the machines, because at the end of the day, the machine is just money, and you have the money and you have them an equipment like this one in a couple of months. But what you cannot have in a couple of months is a person able to use the equipment and to interpret. And
but you have a lot of young people here. What's the average age?
34 years is the last figure I heard. And
very young people.
Very young people, and you know, it's the age of the highest productivity in science. If you look at the history of science, the major scientific discovery have been made by people between the 35 and 45. This is the time.
Would you show me more of this, of your center?
Well, okay, let's. Adelante, Cristina.
So this is your workplace?
This is a workplace, yes.
You spend a lot of time here,
Not so much, because the majority of the time is in the labs, you know. So it's not good to be too much time in the office.
Not for you, because you're a scientist. Let's talk a little bit more about what are the main priorities in innovation and investigation here in this center?
Well, this is a biotechnology center. It is called the Center of Molecular Immunology, and is part now of the Cuban biotech industry. In fact, well, people should know that essentially what biotechnology is. You know, that people imagine that biotechnology is something very, let's say, wired and complicated. In fact, biotechnology is nothing more than producing inside a living cell. So biotechnology is essentially a manufacturing process. And as any manufacturing process, manufacturing is transformation, no? You transform cotton into clothes or whatever. It's transformation. In biotechnology, it's the very same. But the specificity is that in biotechnology, the transformation of raw material into the final product takes place inside the living cell. And the living cell is the factory. So this is a rather new technology, being able to cultivate cells at industrial scales and to put these cells to manufacture whatever we want the cell to manufacture. So to change the program of the cell. So this, every living cell is a little factory, you know. And once you master genetic engineering, so you can put genes inside a cell and you can make this cell to manufacture any product. That's why biotechnology is so diverse. So here, what we do is biotechnology of mammalian cells. It means that what we have in the fermenters is mammalian cells growing. And this is the technological specificity. And then from the viewpoint of research focus, what we do is cancer research, cancer immunotherapy. So we manufacture antibodies and cancer vaccines for the treatment of tumors.
What point is this? Because there's a lot of expectation towards a cure for cancer. This center, which is highly specialized in this kind of treatment and diagnosis procedures, in what point would you consider it is towards cancer?
Well, in fact, maybe it's rather, let's say, crude to say this, but cancer will never be cured. Cancer will be controlled. It's something different. So chronic diseases of the adulthood, like cancer, diabetes, hypertension, or arthritis, all these diseases are not cured. They are controlled. So the concept is not cured, the concept is controlled. So what is going to happen in cancer is that stepwise, even advanced cancer will be transformed into a chronic disease. And people, will live with the tumor for many years. Exactly the same thing as happens now with diabetes. So, in 1920, all diabetic people died 1 year after the diagnosis, like a cancer today. And today, people with diabetes can live for 40 years with a quality of life. And so stepwise, cancer is moving in that direction. So the concept is not cancer cure, the concept is cancer control. And in that sense, there is a substantial advance in the world, also here in Cuba, and more you see people living with cancer, normally working in the family and receiving treatment, because chronic disease requires chronic treatment. So that's the idea, and it's very difficult to talk about cancer in general, because cancer, again, is not a disease. Cancer is 200 diseases. So there are 200 kind of cancer, more than 200, 210, 200 and something, and each one is different. But the idea is that progress should be monitored disease per disease, and there are 200.
So it's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work. No, that's for sure. The only certitude that is here is that there is a lot of work. And more and more, there are new products for treating tumors, and products with low toxicity. Because if you want to move treatment towards chronicity, so you need products with low toxicity, because patient will receive the product for years. That's precisely what monoclonal antibodies do. We have patients with our product that have been receiving the product for 10 years, every month, and without cumulative toxicity. And that's very good, because this kind of low toxic products open the way to the transformation of malignant tumors into a chronic disease.
What's the most, if someone asks you, what's the most important product that you've developed here towards cancer?
Well, now it's a monoclonal antibodies that we call nimotuzumab. This is the technical product. It's a monoclonal antibody that targets a cell surface receptor. So in the surface of the cell, there are receptors that are kind of go-no-go signal. The activation of the receptor is cell proliferation. So if you block that receptor, so the cells stop dividing. And one of these receptors is called EGF receptor. People know in biochemistry, you see all the reactions there. Know what is that molecule. And cancer cells used to have 10 times more than normal cells. That's why the cell proliferation is so fast or uncontrolled. And this antibody blocks that receptors and slow down cell proliferation, and then stop the growing of the tumor. This antibody is now, of course, it is registered in Cuba. It is being used widely in Cuba, but it is also registered in...
For free? For free?
In Cuba, for free. In Cuba, it's 100% for free. We supply to the Ministry of Health. Of course, the Ministry of Health pay to the institute, because the institute also an enterprise now. It is also a company, that need to be economically sustainable. But it is the Ministry of Health who pays, so the patient does not pay. For the patient is for free. But the product is also registered in other 30 countries beyond Cuba. It is being used in worldwide. No? I had recently, let's say, a very special human experience 2 months ago when we were in a negotiation, a group of us in Jakarta, in Indonesia, and then discussing with physicians at the Cancer Hospital of Jakarta, and then a young lady, a patient, came to us and told us, I am using your product. So this young lady, with a brain tumor, by the way, is alive and receiving one of the products that is produced here in Cuba, in this center. And this is the other side of the planet. So
it's a success.
Eh?
At least this product is a success.
This product is a success, but we don't like to, we don't like to talk about success. This is a word that is not usually in the lips of scientists. So unconformity is the way of living of scientists. We are never satisfied with what we do. No, of course, with this product and with other products that are also in the pipeline, in the product pipeline. So we have succeeded to keep alive and well, more and more patients, but still there is 100 times more work to do than the work that has been already done. So we are on the good track, I will say.
So you were talking about all these products produced here in this center, which are sold to other countries. And I imagine, doctor, that this would bring to the country, to Cuba, and specifically to this center, profits, important profits, in order to enrich all the procedures, which are not cheap procedures. And it also involves the formation, education of highly specialized scientists. How's that working?
Well, in fact, there is a transformation process ongoing. And this is a very beautiful story and very interesting story. Because when these institutions were established in the 90s, and some of them in the 80s, there were scientific institutions financed by the budget of the state. So they were the budget economy. And stepwise, these centers started to manufacture and to export. And then it came a kind of metamorphosis and of maturation. And these institutions became high technology enterprises. So high technology enterprise is not just a big institute, it's something different. Different in the strategy, and is part of what people in the world call the knowledge economy, the knowledge-based economy. A kind of economy where the value added come from knowledge. So knowledge is the first component of the value chain. And then it develops products, and you have a product pipeline. A product means, well, the metaphor is a pipeline, because you have mature products that are already being produced and exported. You have products or the clinical trials, not yet on the regular productions. You have products and laboratory animal research, and still you have products that are in the lab, so or in the idea of people, no? And products progress stepwise from one stage to the other, and in each stage you add value to the product. And so we didn't have in Cuba industry like this one. And in the developing country, in the non-industrialized countries, like in South America, you have two different worlds. So you have the enterprises and you have the research labs. And one of the tragedies of scientific development in the South is precisely that you have no communication between academia and industry. So academia works well, produce research, good scientists make scientific papers, but this does not translate into industry. And industry relates with other industries abroad, but do not get in touch with their own academia. In fact, the bright idea of the leadership here in Cuba in the 80s was to create this kind of organization that contains research, manufacturing, and even marketing. So, and you close the loop, no, from money to money, from the money that you invest in research to the money that you recover in marketing and in export. Some people used to call this the closed loop concept. So integrated organization. And this concept changed everything. And I can tell you very well this story because before the opening of the Center of Molecular Immunology, I worked in an academic institution. So completely unrelated to the manufacturing. And when we started to set up this center, the first transformation was a mental transformation. So now we have to run an industry that is based on knowledge. And knowledge production is not for its own sake. It's just the first step of a wider chain.
These profits that you make, where do they go?
Well, they go to the owner, and the owner is the Cuban people. So, in fact, it's not so different that happens in other countries. So, the management of an organization like this one is very similar to the management of an organization everywhere. The point is not management, the point is ownership. No? The difference is that if this were a private company located wherever, and then the profits go to the owner. No? Here the profits go to the Cuban people, though. And the representative of the Cuban people is the state. So, and this is also a message that should be clarified, because when people say state-owned enterprises, imagine that the state is a kind of entelequia. No, the state is the representative of the owner, and more in the world, in the developed countries, in the industrialized countries, you have a division between ownership and management, and the companies managed by professional managers, but he managed the organization on behalf of the owner, and the owner is represented by somebody, though the shareholders, well, here the owner is the Cubans, and they are represented by the state. I remember once I had a discussion of this issue with a president of a famous pharmaceutical company, and well, the guy was not good in understanding that, and I asked him, well, how many shareholders do you have in your company? And he said, well, listen, my company is very big. No, we have almost 400,000 shareholders in the company. And I said, well, it's the same. I have 11 million. So 11 million Cubans are the shareholders of this institution. And the profits goes to them. Of course, we take from the cost, no? And not also the cost. We take the reinvestment, because an institution like this one should have a continuous process of development. No? But essentially, after tax and after reinvestment in the growth of the organization and in research, then still you have a profit. And this profit, well, is your hospital, is your school, no? Is the social development in Cuba.
There's a let's say, like a discussion in the scientific world about the possibility of developing science with this kind of results, with a mentality of an enterprise, of a company, that this might damage, in a way, the idea of the sanctity of the pure science. What do you think about this? Is it possible to do both?
Yes, it is. It's a point of balance. You know, nothing in life is completely good or completely bad. So it's how you manage it. The process of, let's say, enterprise support for science is an objective process going on everywhere. In fact, in the North, so roughly 70% of all scientific activity is financed by enterprises. And in the South, it's the other way around. The majority of science is on the budget, no? Because enterprises are not well developed, and then enterprises do not finance science. So until a point until a certain point, the involvement of enterprises in research is very good. It transforms the research into useful products. It put the useful products in hands of people needing it until that point. From that point beyond, it could be a for profit sake, and then it's evil. No? So the idea is to use the advantage of an entrepreneurial mentality, which means that science must be transformed into products that are being used by society, but keep let's say, keep the aim that the final goal of all this is human well-being. It can be done. It's not easy done, but it can be done.
Do you think, and you were talking a little bit about it, you have well-prepared scientists here, a lot of young scientists, some studied here, others have studied abroad, and a lot of people think that even though one of the sources of incomes right now in Cuba is this kind of biotechnological industry, but a lot of people say that probably the biggest asset that Cuba have is the people, and this center is a proof of that.
I think so. In fact, it's a proof of concept of that, and it's a proof that it can be done and it should grow, because this is the challenge of the Cuban economy. So the Cuban economy must grow, and how do we grow? We cannot grow based on the domestic demand, because we are only 11 million people. So China can grow based on the domestic demand. They have, 1,000 million people, and in a 1,000 million people population, you can make a factory of whatever. So you have an attraction power of the domestic demand. We don't have that. So other countries have the, let's say, the advantage of basing the development on natural products, oil, mining. We don't have that. So if we don't have a huge domestic demand for attracting the development, and we don't have natural resources for pushing the development, so what we do? No, our lever for economic development is knowledge. So transition to a knowledge-based economy and to high technology enterprises is not just a beautiful dream. No, it's a concrete need of Cuban economy nowadays, in a globalized economy, by the way, because you cannot do this for the internal demand. So the internal demand in a small country does not have size to make a scale economy. If you are going to set up a facility like this one for producing medicines, antibodies, high technology drugs, no, it should be for the world. Otherwise, it does not make sense economically. So that's why there is a link between high technology and export orientation.
I want to ask you a personal question. Some people could think that fighting against cancer is a little bit tiring, doctor, because it's such a strong and serious disease, and you've said it, 210 types of cancers. Did you ever get tired?
Well, you get tired every day, but it's something that you need to cope with. So you get tired physically, but not emotionally. You need people with special motivation. And you said a personal question. You are not talking about me. I am talking about people working here. And you will see the guys in the labs, the young people there.
Where do you find that kind of motivation? How do you form that kind of motivation for this kind of job?
This is a philosophical question, because this is the sense of life. So what is the sense of your life? No? Having material goods is very, let's say, it's very primitive as a sense of life. The essence of culture, No, it's precisely this. No, cultures mean a sense of that life has a purpose, no, and a sense that it's realized in your capacity to help others, and we need to hope that human beings are like that, and that humans has a will to transform reality, not to use the reality, but to transform reality. So, and people like this exist, and there are not few, huh? There are a lot, and this is the people that populates our lab.
That's great, doctor. So I think that's your biggest success, those motivated people.
Well, you know, first you should select motivatable people, and then to motivate them. So it's a two-step process.
Thank you very much, doctor.
Okay.
It's been a pleasure.
Cristina.